The Scott Jennings Show is proudly sponsored by Lear Capital. Since 1997, Lear has helped Americans protect their retirement accounts and savings with physical gold and silver. With thousands of five-star reviews and $3 billion in transactions, Lear is who I trust to help me buy gold and silver. Visit LearScott.com.
The voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American people. Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
It is Tuesday, March the 10th. You're listening to Common Sense for the American people, and this is a special edition of the Scott Jennings Show. We're broadcasting live today from the Trump Doral Resort in Miami, Florida, where the U.S. House Republican Conference is meeting to outline its policy agenda for the year. I was honored to be asked by the Speaker and the Republican members of Congress to come and address their luncheon today, and I'm now broadcasting our radio show from the conference. And because I am here, I have asked 8 members of the House GOP, including the entire leadership, which includes House Speaker Mike Johnson, to come on the show. They have all agreed to do that, and the Speaker and others will be along today. Of course, on everyone's mind here at Trump Doral, the war in Iran and the impact on oil prices and the residual impact on the American economy. Checking the current price of a barrel of crude, just under $83, down a little more than 12% today. And the current price of a gallon of gas in America, $3.54, although that varies state to state, such as in places like California, where local policies and taxes add nearly $2 a gallon. President Trump himself was here last night. He spoke to this same group of Republican congressmen that I spoke to just a few minutes ago, and he addressed these energy issues. Let's hear the president in cut number 5.
As we continue Operation Epic Fury, we're also focused on keeping energy and oil flowing to the world. And I will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to stop the globe's oil supply. And if Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level. I will take out those targets that were easy and that I mentioned just before. We'll take them out so quickly, they'll never be able to recover, ever. If they want to play that game, they better not play that game. In the long run, oil supplies will be dramatically more secure without the threat of Iranian ships, drones, missiles, nuclear menace, or anything. So the Strait of Hormuz is going to remain safe. We have a lot of Navy ships there. We have the best equipment in the world, inspecting for mines. Again, most of their ships are down at the bottom of the sea, but we will hit them so hard that it will not be possible for them or anybody else helping them to ever recover that section of the world if they do anything. In recent years, the regime and its terror proxies have launched attacks on hundreds of commercial vessels. We're putting an end to all of this threat once and for all, and the result will be lower oil prices, oil and gas prices for American families. We've done that. We've done it. We brought it very low. This was just an excursion into something that had to be done.
That was President Donald Trump speaking last night here in Miami to the House Republican Policy Conference that's going on, and from where we broadcast our show today. And sitting next to me, one of those House Republicans, a friend of the Scott Jennings Show, many appearances. You see Congressman August Pfluger sitting here. He's head of the Republican Study Committee, fresh off of the primary in Texas last week. Welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show. I want to start here, August, with this discussion about energy. The president addressed it last night. You all are no doubt hearing from your constituents. You know a lot about these issues. What are you seeing in the energy undulations? What can Americans expect?
Well, Scott, it's great to be with you. Thank you for delivering such a great speech to us today and encouraging us, especially on the message that we need to get out to the American public. Energy is a big piece of that message. The president has calmed the waters this morning and has, I think, helped move the market back down into where the fundamentals actually are. I represent the Permian Basin. 13.5 million barrels a day are produced in the country. We do about 6.5 million. But we wouldn't have been able to take action against Iran had we not been energy dominant, energy independent. And President Trump mentioned this And that's why it's so important. Can you imagine 4 more years of Joe Biden's assault on fossil fuels? We would not be able to do any geopolitical actions to make the world a safer place, but we are now. And the president is calming things back down, saying we've got the supply. It's a logistical issue. We're going to get the Strait of Hormuz open back up, and everything is going to be fine.
As people look at the war and look at the situation with the oil, I think it's important to remember there's not a supply issue here. The world and the United States is producing plenty of oil. This is purely a question of logistics because of the Strait of Hormuz. And it seems to be the president has taken the correct steps to keep that going. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see how Iran treats it in the coming days. But in your opinion, has the president done everything he can to fortify the logistics and the shipping through the strait that'll calm the oil markets down?
Well, he absolutely has, and so proud of our military. They're in a fight. I mean, this is a violent regime, and they are fighting a regime who's sending missiles into Abu Dhabi and Doha and Kuwait and other places. So at the same time that they are destroying and degrading those military forces, they're also doing the best they can to make sure that the oil supply and the commercial ships are not attacked, which is very important. But I think first things first, the military business is really important in this fight, and we're praying for all those service members who are part of it.
Yeah, 7 service members have now lost their lives in Operation Epic Fury. The 7th was identified yesterday, a Kentuckian actually, and we pray for him and pray for his family. We're going to track the latest in the Iran conflict throughout the show. August, with you, however, I want to spend a few minutes talking about something that you have been working on for several weeks now. You and I have had this discussion on and off the air many times, and it is the need for Republicans in the House to show the American people a legislative agenda and progress towards a legislative agenda for the rest of the year. The best way to do that is through a budget reconciliation process. This is how the big, beautiful bill was done last summer. I believe you came on this show and announced that you were going to do it. I read that the House leadership wants to do it. We have very tight margins in the House, but they're even tighter now than when we last spoke. Where do we stand on budget reconciliation? Can we get this done? Can we get a resolution out of the Budget Committee to even trigger the process? Where are we?
Well, it's so important. And yes, we can do this. President Trump gave us a roadmap yesterday in his speech, and he told us the things that need to happen. And a lot of it revolves around affordability of housing and unwinding 4 terrible years of inflation that the Biden administration did. We are fixing it. And he gave us a good roadmap. And I believe that reconciliation is the only option. Democrats are not going to vote for anything. They've shown us that. They can't even vote to open up DHS. You have these lines at all these airports. Our Homeland Security is at risk now. So we can't count on them for a single thing. But what the American public is asking us, and I want to brag on what you told us today, your message resonated, and you said people want to know, Americans want to know that we are interested in them. We are interested in American citizens. We are taking care of their economics, of their security, of their safety, and instead of what Democrats are doing, which is everyone and everything else. Your message resonated with 100-plus lawmakers today. Thank you. And yes, we can get this done.
Well, and the key word there is citizens. What are we doing for American citizens? Who is doing something for American citizens, and who is paying attention to everybody? But it's pretty obvious the Democrats have adopted illegal aliens and everyone else as their principal constituents. Therefore, the Republicans have to adopt and fight as hard as possible for American citizens. As part of budget reconciliation, what could we see here? Do you think we could see additional tax cuts as part of this? Obviously, you cut taxes last summer and made tax cuts permanent. That's helping. Will you see more tax cuts on this?
I think there could be tax code changes. We are going to be celebrating what those tax cuts in the big, beautiful bill have done for us this year. And I think as importantly as that, how do we set the conditions for a favorable housing market, a favorable healthcare system? President Trump spent a lot of time talking about transparency and competition and not giving money straight to the insurance companies. That is what our American citizens want. They want their choices when it comes to what plans they're going to purchase and where they're going to go. They want to know that they're getting a good deal. Yeah. And that's what I think the fundamentals of our reconciliation bill will be, in addition to the fraud that we know exists in places like Minnesota. people want to know that we are holding accountable those who have defrauded the U.S. government and taxpayers. They want to know that we are taking action, and this bill is doing exactly that.
Yeah, the issue here is that you have everyday working people who believe they play by the rules, they pay their taxes, and they want to know why there's so many people who get to defraud the system, who get to fleece the American taxpayer, and sometimes seemingly face little consequences. If you're interested in the House Republicans and the Republican Party doing a legislative agenda this year, this man sitting next to me, August Pfluger, at the head of the Republican Study Committee, is the person who is currently driving it forward. August, thanks for coming on the Scott Jennings Show. We're going to take a quick break. First, a word about Relief Factor. You know, we're getting lots of letters and lots of cards and lots of messages from customers around the country who are having a great experience on Relief Factor. They had aches and pains. They tried the 3-week quick start, and then all of a sudden they realize this thing's working for me, and they stick with it. If you have been thinking about trying something different with your aches and pains, now is the time. Relief Factor, 3-week quick start, $19.95. You can't beat it with a stick. Go to relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF. Ask yourself, how would it feel to be out of pain? You might just get the answer if you try Relief Factor. When we come back, the chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee from Kentucky, Brett Guthrie, is here. It's common sense for the American people. Stay with us.
Hey, it's Scott Jennings. You know, I got to tell you, I think nutrition has gotten way too complicated. Every week there's a new powder, a new lab-created formula, some new breakthrough. But here is the truth. We've been told since we were kids to eat our fruits and vegetables. Nobody really had to explain why. We just did it. Because when you eat whole foods, you're getting phytonutrients, those natural compounds that your body uses to adjust, repair, and respond every single day. That's not hype. That's how human beings were designed. That's why I take Balance of Nature. They use a tailored vacuum cold process that stabilizes the phytonutrition in fruits and veggies, so you're getting real whole food nutrition, not synthetic substitutes. Their whole health system includes fruits and veggies plus fiber and spice, 47 ingredients in one simple routine. I take it myself. If you want to fight the good fight, go to balanceofnature.com to subscribe and save today. Join hundreds of thousands of customers in one simple routine that is changing the world.
Ready for some common sense and a little Kentucky windage? Here's Scott Jennings.
You're going to get a double dose of Kentucky windage here in this segment. It's Tuesday, March the 10th. Common sense for the American people. I'm Scott Jennings, broadcasting on Salem. Sitting next to me is the congressman from Kentucky's 2nd Congressional District. His name is Brett Guthrie, and he holds the position, one of the most important policy positions in the Congress, of chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Brett, welcome in.
Thanks. You pointed out today it took me 17 years to get there.
I know.
We're seniority driven, though.
Well, it is an interesting committee because you're dealing with energy, healthcare, things like big tech, and all those issues, even the name and image likeness stuff in sports. Your committee has
broadcast,
one of the broadest,
streaming. Yes,
the jurisdiction is so broad.
It is absolutely broad, and like we had to deal with the aftermath of Bad Bunny after the Super Bowl with the things that he said, and actually NBC bleeped out the most inappropriate things that he said. But it's amazing the NFL wants that to be their product.
Yeah, it was a strange choice, I think, for a lot of people. Let's talk about the committee and some of the bigger issues that people are worried about. I was talking to a candidate running in a race the other day, and I said, what's the number one thing you're hearing? And he said, honestly, it's still health insurance premiums. People are walking up to me and saying, you know, my health insurance keeps going up, but I don't feel like my insurance or my health care is getting any better. Republicans have some thoughts on this. The president last night continues to assail health insurance companies. Where are you on this as part of the Republican agenda?
Well, the current law of the land is the Affordable Care Act.
Right.
We have tried to repeal it. We've tried to change it. So when people say their health insurance is going up, it is the Affordable Care Act. So the Democrats are absolutely responsible for ruining, I think, the health care insurance market and where things are increasing. What we're working very hard to do is we want people to be able to see what things cost. It's just such hidden in what things cost, and it's so hidden inside these 4 or 5 companies that an outsider can't develop a new company. Typically, if something gets too expensive and people don't think they're getting the value, they can buy something else. But we want to break into that monopoly, make sure people expose what things cost, and then because every time you just try to put a price control on something, it seems the movie goes somewhere else. We fixed PBMs where you buy a pharmaceutical you're supposed to get a rebate, where the rebate goes to the company selling the pharmaceutical.
Right.
So we mandated it goes to the client. Well, they set up a client in Switzerland. So if you get to join you got to join their client, and the money goes through Switzerland. And so we want to fix it, and we want to. It's very deliberative, but price transparency is probably the key.
You brought up the issue of prescription drugs there, discussing the PBM reform which by the way was years in the making, and the Republicans and President Trump finally got it done. It seems to me that on the healthcare front, one of Trump's biggest areas of success has been in doing something about the price of prescription drugs. Some of that's been by executive order. Some of it's been by legislation. You agree with that?
And what's amazing is how prescription drugs have been flat and then they're increased. Now we have miracle drugs coming on the marketplace that are expensive, fixing hemophilia, the other things that they can do that are expensive because their personalized medicine is genetic, more than just like a tablet or a pill. But in just terms of taking medicine, he has really driven down the price.
Let's talk about stuff going on in the tech space, the digital world. We've talked a lot on this show about how in danger children are on a lot of these games and apps and other platforms. Just last week, the Energy and Commerce Committee passed out a bill called the App Store Accountability Act, trying to get a little bit more transparency into what the tech companies are doing to protect children. Because what happens is adults show up in these things.
That's right.
And they groom these kids. They contact the kids, they threaten the kids, and it really puts them in danger.
Well, we had a big debate, like apps have to put if you're going to go on Jim Beam, that's in my district. If you're going on their website, you have to say that you're 21. So the question is, do you just let apps set that up themselves? Here's the problem, that people can just be playing games, and they're interacting with each other. So if there's one called Roblox, a lot of states are suing.
Oh, yeah.
That if you are a child playing on a game, it's a child area, then guess who tries to get online to connect with children? And so we want to make sure that the app stores, the Apples and those others, are responsible for what goes on. They want to have limited exclusion to who gets on their app or who gets on their phone. Well, they need to be responsible for the quality and the quantity of what comes on their phone.
Got about 30 seconds, Brett. You're a West Point graduate and a veteran of the 101st Airborne Division. You're watching Operation Epic Fury unfold. We had a 7th soldier killed in action, and he was from Kentucky.
He's from Glendale, my district.
And in your district. It's just wondering for your reaction to that and thoughts on the war.
Well, it's just awful. You hate to see these families. My family lost, my dad lost his brother in Korea, so we know how this follows families forever, so my thoughts and prayers are with them. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It cannot. They've been 47 years. You can almost trace everything going on in the Middle East back to Iran. I think eliminating the regime is the right thing to do. That's
Congressman Brett Guthrie. He represents Kentucky's 2nd Congressional District. He lives in Bowling Green, home of the Corvette. And your district is
the
home
Hilltoppers.
The Hilltoppers. Your district's home to Mammoth Cave and Abraham Lincoln's boyhood home.
And the bullion, the gold bullion at Fort Knox.
And Fort Knox. It's a really interesting district. Brett, thanks for coming by the show. We're going to take a break. We're going to have more after this with Steve Scalise here on Common Sense for the American People on Salem. Stay with us. Hey, it's Scott Jennings. I have a message about crime. It's skyrocketing, and you may already own a firearm. However, before you face the financial, legal, and emotional weight of pulling the trigger, there's a smarter option. It's called Byrna. That's Byrna. Let me tell you about it. Byrna makes less lethal launchers that fire tear gas and kinetic rounds designed to stop an attacker for up to 40 minutes. That gives you time to escape and call for help without deadly consequences. Their best-selling compact launcher is sleek, slim, and incredibly powerful. It's about the size of a smartphone. It's ideal for concealed carry, comfortable, discreet, and confidence building. I got to tell you, I've used it, I've shot it. You would really, really be amazed at what this Byrna launcher can do. It fires at 400 feet per second with serious stopping power, enough to shut down a threat fast, and without the legal and moral complexity of lethal force. Byrna is proudly American. Over 80% of the components are U.S. sourced. Every launcher is hand-assembled in Fort Wayne, Indiana. With over 750,000 of these things sold worldwide, Byrna is best in class. And it's legal in all 50 states. No background checks. It comes straight to your door. Learn more about this at Byrna.com. That's Byrna.com.
News, comment, and the stories and facts the mainstream media refuses to discuss. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
It is Tuesday, March the 10th, special edition of the Scott Jennings Show. Common sense for the American people. You see my next guest popping in here, the floor leader of the House Republicans, the majority, Steve Scalise from Louisiana. We'll get to him in just one moment. We'll let him get his headset adjusted here. A couple of breaking news items for you. A police officer and a suspect have been shot near a synagogue. It's an active shooter incident in Baltimore, Maryland. The condition of the suspect currently unclear, but a police officer has been shot. And Iran has fired ballistic missiles into a German military base in Jordan. So Iran continues to fire at its neighbors, and I suspect create more enemies for itself. Let's hear from General Dan Kane, however. The issue is, how many more missiles does Iran have? How many more attack drones do they have? They're firing far less today than they were at the beginning of this war. Here's cut number 12.
In reducing the number of missile and drone attacks out of Iran. Ballistic missile attacks continue to trend downward, 90% from where they've started, and one-way attack drones have decreased 83% since the beginning of the operation. A testament to our air defenders and our air defense systems, and as I said, our partners in the region continue to do great work as well. Second, we're making substantial progress towards destroying the Navy. In the first 10 days of the conflict, we're more than 50 Iranian naval ships into the campaign using a combination of artillery, fighters, bombers, and sea-launched missiles.
That was General Dan Kane, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Sitting next to me right now is the House Majority Floor Leader from the great state of Louisiana. Steve Scalise is here. Representative Scalise, you just heard General Kane talking about the war effort, what Iran is capable of doing. They fired missiles into a German military base today. You know, something I've been wondering, are we having any expectation that other countries are going to eventually get fed up with this and join in the military attacks against Iran?
Well, Scott, first, thanks for having me, and good to be with you. And, you know, you would like to think that some of our European neighbors would recognize what Iran's threat poses. You know, if you looked at the first few days of this conflict, it was almost like Europe was trying to sit it out. It was like this kind of pre-World War II mentality. The Neville Chamberlain wing of the European leaders was back at it again. And, you know, Great Britain was there, you know, almost saying, you know, United States, don't come close to us right now. And then, of course, Iran, in a really stupid calculation, started lashing out at all of their Middle East neighbors. And they really brought a lot of the Middle Eastern countries that would have maybe sat on the sidelines into our coalition. It was us and Israel that went in to this together. And then you saw a lot of other countries join in from the Middle East because they recognize the threat Iran poses. Let's keep in mind, Iran has declared war for decades on America, on Israel, on anybody that believes in freedom, including their own people, slaughtered tens of thousands of their own people, but killed hundreds of American troops. Let's not forget that. And so President Trump did what many other presidents thought about and just for whatever reason didn't take the actual action to do to protect America. President Trump's doing it, and I'm glad he is. But if you look at Europe, you know, it seems like they're very, very slow to the game. I hope they come on board because Iran, a nuclear-armed Iran especially, would have been a major threat to the world. President Trump has done the world a favor by removing that threat, but it's not over. And until the people of Iran are able to take their country back, Scott, and this is something that's so important when you hear from people inside the country that yearn for freedom. Going back to the Arab Spring when Barack Obama just let them kind of hang out on the vine, and other presidents just ignored their pleas. Finally, President Trump did something about it. Now it's going to be ultimately up to the people of Iran, but it'd be nice if our neighbors who also believe in freedom would step up against evil, because there's evil in the world. It's not just Iran. It's, of course, Russia. It's China. It's North Korea. And yet at the head of that snake in many places was Iran as the largest state sponsor of terror. And now they're on their knees. Let's not let them up.
I keep hearing Democrats complain that they are not satisfied or that they're not hearing a rationale for what we're doing in Iran. It's pretty clear to me they're not going to have missiles, they're not going to have nuclear weapons, they're not going to have an aggressive navy, and they're not going to export terrorism around the world. And oh, by the way, as you mentioned, 47 years of this killing Americans, and really waging war on all of Western civilization. That's a pretty good precursor and a pretty good rationale for attacking these guys, if you ask me.
Did they forget about hundreds of Americans, Scott, American troops, men and women in uniform that were killed at the hands of Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah? All the blood is on the Ayatollah's hands, and the Ayatollahs no longer walking this planet because ultimately it caught up with them. But where are those Democrats? Especially when they were calling on presidents to do something about the threat that Iran posed. And of course, you saw the appeasement wing of the Democrat Party, which you've got the socialist Mandami wing that's pretty much running the Democratic Party today. But on the other side, you've got appeasers that were letting them get a nuclear bomb. How many times did John Kerry fly to every place around the world on a private jet while he's telling you to ride a bicycle, Scott? But he was, let's let Iran get a nuclear weapon, but it's going to all be on our terms. How crazy was that? And they were doing it. They were about to get a nuclear weapon that they could then, they're enriching uranium at weapons grade to put on missiles with drones backing them up to deliver to Western countries, not just Israel, America.
It wasn't really hiding the ball either. They came to the meeting with our negotiators and said, we have enough material to make 11 nuclear bombs. I mean, that was their starting position. And so when you tell the president that, who has drawn a clear red line on this, they will not have nuclear weapons. A, that was stupid for the Iranians to do that. But B, they revealed their view, which, by the way, is they're fanatics. Yeah. They're religious fanatics. They're not rational, and they're not really here to be cajoled diplomatically. They believe they are supposed to be bringing about the end of the world through the use of nuclear weapons. It sounds crazy, but that's what they believe. Something, by the way, you put on the floor of the House the other day. I was shocked at this. You put up a resolution that said, we're reaffirming the position of the United States that Iran is the world's largest state sponsor of terror. And 53 Democrats voted against that. What was going on the House floor that day?
Scott, incredibly telling. You look, the Democrats had filed that War Powers resolution, which was really a resolution to block the president from defending American interests. It was a crazy vote. And go look at that vote, by the way. Almost every Democrat voted to say, even if Iran is attacking American bases, which they were doing, attacking embassies, which is an act of war against America, that America can't defend itself. That was insane, and we voted it down, but almost every Democrat voted against it. But because that was coming to the floor, I worked with Chairman Mast, and we said, look, if the Democrats are going to bring this, why don't we remind people? Because they sure don't teach history in school, it seems like, these days. And a lot of our own Democrat colleagues seem to forget history of what Iran has done decades and decades, over and over, trying to kill Americans, successfully killing Americans, declaring war on anybody that believes in freedom, going after Israel. What have they done as the largest state sponsor of terrorism? Supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, all these other groups, and yet it almost seems like Democrats want to forget that all happened because they hate Donald Trump so much. So we put that resolution on the floor right before the vote that would have taken away the president and his commander-in-chief's ability to protect and defend America, but we also put that reminder up, and as you said, 53 Democrats voted no. They basically said they support Iran's actions promoting terrorism around the world. It was insane, but very telling because, by the way, Scott, those are the same people who would be running Congress if people don't go out and vote this November. Do you think your vote matters this November? Hey, you like what Trump's doing? You're going to sit at home? If you sit at home, those people are in charge, not just the Mandami wing of the party, but the group that said, oh, what Iran has been doing for decades is okay. They would be running this country.
That's the House Majority Floor Leader Steve Scalise, that voice you're hearing on the Scott Jennings Show today. We're at Trump Doral Resort in Miami. Leader Scalise, the House Republican Conference is meeting here to discuss policy priorities and political priorities for the year. It seems to me there's a couple of issues. One is immediate. The Department of Homeland Security, at a time of war, at a time of terrorism, at a time of bad weather, at a time of 5-hour lines at the airport, remains shut down because of Democrats. That's one bucket. And number two, it's the legislative agenda for the rest of the year. Let's start with DHS. You all did pass something out of the House over Democratic objections. What's your view? Are the Democrats, and now in the Senate, ever going to relent on this despite all of these issues going on?
Yeah, and this is another example of how Democrats just want chaos in America. They wake up every day. They want to just block anything that Donald Trump's doing, and they want to root against any success for America as long as Donald Trump's president. Again, this is not your father or grandfather's Democrat Party. These are radicals. These are people who really believe in that far left socialist Mandami agenda. And so they shut down the Department of Homeland Security. And we're at a heightened threat right now. But it's not just to defending our homeland. It's when you go to the airport, TSA. You know, this is what you just referenced, 5-hour waits at the airport at New Orleans. There are pictures. You can go see them. Lines 2 stories long, winding all around the airport, going into the parking garage to get into the airport to be screened by TSA because they don't have the workers showing up because they're not getting paid, because Democrats decided to have a tantrum against the country. You know, Coast Guard not getting paid. There's disasters going on. You've got freezes going on with these cold storms, and yet FEMA doesn't have the money they need to help people. And this is the Democrat Party that talks about compassion all day long. They care about working people. They've never cared about working people. They're denying paychecks to blue-collar workers right now at your local airports. So if you're waiting in a long line, missing a flight because Democrats decided they don't like the president, so they're going to make your life miserable, how's that helping anybody? They need to open the government, but it shows you who they are. They don't mind holding Americans hostage just because they're having a tantrum with the results of the 2024 election.
Last question for you, Leader Scalise. What can we expect to see out of the Republican majority on the floor of the House, legislative priorities, short-term, medium-term, and for the rest of the year?
Yeah, you're going to see more bills with House Republicans working with President Trump to make life more affordable for working families, like we've been doing the last year. We know tax cuts to make sure that the working families' tax cuts in place so that you don't have a tax increase, no tax on tips, overtime, seniors getting a tax credit. We passed that. Every Democrat voted no. We're carrying that out now. We're doing more things for affordability. We've got a good housing bill to lower housing costs. Right now that's over in the Senate. They're trying to work out some differences that we have with the Senate. We've got a big transparency bill, Scott. So in healthcare, you always hear people complaining. I can see what I'm on the interstate, and I can see 4 different on every intersection, 4 different prices for gas, and I'll drive across 8 lanes of traffic to save 2 cents, but I have no idea what healthcare costs are. We're bringing a price transparency bill in healthcare out of the Energy and Commerce Committee. You'll see that on the floor. Permitting reform so you can build things in America again. It's almost impossible with all these crazy radical laws, Endangered Species Act, the NEPA reforms, which basically say you can't get a permit to build something in America, and it takes 15 years to fix a bridge that's about to collapse. It's insane because of radical environmentalists. We're confronting all of that by bringing bills so that you can lower the cost of things, ultimately lower gas prices, lower food costs. And Democrats are standing in the way, but we're moving those bills anyway, Scott. And that's coming up in the next few months. You're going to see these every week on the House floor.
That is Steve Scalise. He's the House Majority Floor Leader. We're broadcasting live from the House Republican Policy Retreat in Miami, Florida. Leader, thanks for coming by. We're going to take a quick break. I do want to give all of you all a quick reminder. Sign up for Patriot Mobile if you need a new wireless provider, or if you're not happy with what you've got, or you want to invest your monthly bill in a company that shares your values. The answer is clear. Patriot Mobile. I know these guys. I trust these guys. I've met with these guys. Superior product, but more than anything, they support your values. Switching is easier than ever. Take a stand today. Go to patriotmobile.com/Scott or call 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code Scott and you'll get a free month of service. patriotmobile.com/Scott, 972-PATRIOT. When we come back, Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith, will be here. It's common sense for the American people. Stay with us.
You know, gold and silver recently soared to record highs and then pulled back. So are precious metals still a good buy? Many Wall Street experts predict higher prices ahead. Why? Well, because we still have trillions in national debt, a declining dollar, and inflation that keeps shrinking our savings. Even with corrections along the way, gold remains a historical hedge for wealth protection. That's why Morgan Stanley's chief investment officer ditched the 60-40 stocks and bonds portfolio and is recommending up to 20% in precious metals. They're getting educated, and you should too. Call Lear Capital at 1-800-880-2424 for your free gold investment kit and learn how you could qualify for up to $20,000 in bonus gold. Lear Capital has over $3 billion in transactions and thousands of 5-star reviews. Call 1-800-880-2424, 1-800-880-2424, or visit learscott.com.
He's the author of the best-selling book, A Revolution of Common Sense. Here's Scott Jennings.
And it is Common Sense for the American people. We are broadcasting live today from Trump Doral in Miami. The House Republicans in Washington are meeting here this week to talk about their policy priorities for the rest of the year. And on this show today, we have House Republicans coming out the wazoo. Here in the first hour, we're wrapping up with Jason Smith. He's the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee from Missouri, the 8th Congressional District. We have something in common. You're from the part of Missouri that butts up against the part of Kentucky where I'm from, and we share a love of the St. Louis Cardinals. So thank you for coming by the show today. As chair of the Ways and Means, obviously, you're most interested in financial issues and what's going on with the American economy. I'm just going to start here. Where do you see the American economy today after a year plus of Trump and the changes that House Republicans have made to our tax code and to the overall economic environment in our country?
It's in a much better place than it was 15 months ago when President Trump came into office, 15 months ago. You've seen just in his first year, wages have increased more than the prior 4 years of Joe Biden. That makes real sense to average day Americans. You look at inflation as the lowest it's been in 5 years. We passed the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cuts, on July 4th. The first quarter after passage, the GDP was 4.4%, whenever you had the congressional scorekeepers say that it would be 1.8.
Yeah, they missed it.
They absolutely missed it. You're going to see the next 3 quarters of this year, I think, will go gangbusters. Right now, we are in the largest refund season that the IRS has ever been a part of. Nearly $400 billion is going to be refunded to Americans through the provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill, like the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, the increased child tax credit, the increased standard deduction. You could go line by line of all those provisions. That's resulting in a real impact. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in Southeast Missouri, and I had a waitress tell me that she just filed her taxes, and she'll be receiving more than $10,000 in a refund. That's real money for that waitress in Southeast Missouri. That will pay for her rent for more than a year.
So we are starting to see hardworking, average Americans see the tax benefits of what was done last summer. I do think some people wonder, should we see another round of tax relief for working class Americans? I know the conference and the House really is closely divided, and the Senate is what it is. You need 60 to do most things over there. They've got 53. Is there any future tax relief or tax changes on the horizon beyond what you've already done, which, by the way, is substantial?
Well, it was the largest tax cut in U.S. history. It was even larger than Ronald Reagan's 1981 tax cuts. And there's only been 8 major tax cut pieces of legislation in the history of our country. This happens to be the biggest. There are additional tax policies that we absolutely need to address, especially some tax issues that are expiring at the end of this year. But within the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cuts, we addressed 103 different tax titles. So that was about as aggressive as you possibly can be. But can we create more tax relief for working families? I'd absolutely love to. That'd be very beneficial.
Let me ask you about fraud. Obviously, the American people are watching all these stories of fraud out there. It's happening in different states and different places. Minnesota has caught a lot of attention. I know the Ways and Means Committee has been looking into this. There's investigations going on. What's your general view about where fighting fraud is headed this year? Because I think, average everyday people right now are saying, well, I play by the rules, I pay my taxes, I do everything I'm supposed to do, and yet we seem to have let a bunch of people into our country who are here to do nothing but pillage our system.
It's so frustrating. Without a doubt, there's so many areas in government to address waste, fraud, and abuse. A year ago, I, in fact, asked the Government Accountability Office, along with the former chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Kathy Morse Rogers, when she was in Congress, we requested them to look into the fraud within the Obamacare exchanges and those subsidies that was brought forward. They released their report in December. In that report, it showed such alarming things, like 58,000 dead people.
Unbelievable.
That's having their insurance subsidized. So that means the insurance companies are getting subsidized with 58,000 people, but not providing any care.
There's a lot of examples of this. I get the feeling people are none too pleased about what's being uncovered, but thankfully the different Republican committee chairs are looking into it. Jason Smith, head of the Ways and Means Committee in the U.S. House, thanks for coming on the show. We're at the top of the hour. Take a break. When we come back next hour, more House Republicans, including the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is here. It's Scott Jennings on Salem. Stay with us. It is Tuesday, March the 10th. This is a special edition of the Scott Jennings Show, Common Sense for the American People. We are broadcasting live from the Trump Doral Resort today in Miami, Florida, because the House Republican Conference is meeting here. All the Republicans in the U.S. House are talking about their policy and political priorities for the rest of the year, and we have 8 members of the House Republican Conference coming on the show. 4 we did the first hour, and we have 4 coming up this hour. In just a moment, the whip of the House Republicans, Tom Emmer of Minnesota, sitting next to me, will be along to talk about what's going on in policy and politics in Washington, D.C. Did want to give you a quick check of the headlines. The FBI says explosive residue was found at a Pennsylvania storage facility. This is connected to this New York City terrorism investigation from the incident that happened over the weekend at Gracie Mansion, where 2 radical Islamic terrorists showed up at a protest with improvised explosive devices, IEDs. They drove up from Pennsylvania into the city to try to commit this act of terrorism. So the federal agents are investigating this warehouse. They have found explosive residue. Obviously, this investigation is unfolding, and thank goodness they were not able to injure anyone in New York City. I would note, though, we have terrorism in New York City. We had terrorism a couple of weeks ago in Austin, Texas. We have the possibility of Iranian sleeper cells in the United States, and all the while, Democrats have the Department of Homeland Security shut down. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth briefed the media alongside Joint Chief Chairman General Kane this morning on the war in Iran. Secretary Hegseth said today would be the most intense day of airstrikes. Let's listen to cut number 11.
Today will be, yet again, our most intense day of strikes inside Iran. The most fighters, the most bombers, the most strikes. Intelligence more refined and better than ever. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, the last 24 hours have seen Iran fire the lowest number of missiles they've been capable of firing yet. Just the bifurcation, just the trend lines that we talked about on our first briefing. You see, this is not 2003. This is not endless nation building under those types of quagmires we saw under Bush or Obama. It's not even close. Our generation of soldier will not let that happen again, and nor will this president, who very clearly ran against those kinds of never-ending, nebulously scoped missions. Those days are dead. Instead, we're winning decisively with brutal efficiency, total air.
That was Secretary of War Pete Hegseth this morning in his press conference about the war effort. Here to discuss that and all of the day's news is the whip of the House Majority Republican Conference, Tom Emmer of Minnesota. Mr. Emmer, thanks for coming back on the Scott Jennings Show. You heard Secretary Hegseth. You've been watching and getting briefings from the administration about the war effort. What's your reaction so far? How are we doing?
Well, God bless Donald Trump for being a decision maker and a leader. He is the ultimate negotiator and the ultimate peacemaker. He negotiates and he draws the line, unlike previous presidents who would point out this is a red line and don't enforce it. And let's face it, Scott, he's doing a job that a Democrat by the name of Jimmy Carter should have done some 40 to 50 years ago. When this happened, it never had to get this to this level had Jimmy Carter just been willing to do his job. Donald Trump is now cleaning that up for former President Carter and all those that followed him, because this is the chief sponsor of terror. They are committed, and they have been since 1979, to destroying the United States of America. And for anyone, especially the minority leader, and there's a reason why he's going to remain in the minority, Hakeem Jeffries, to come out on the news the day after the strike and say we're going to lose. I mean, come on, Hakeem. At some point, we got to be Americans, right? At some point, we've got to recognize that we have young men and women wearing the uniform. Their families are here at home praying for them every day. We need to support them. And Hakeem and Democrats need to understand, not only was this mission necessary because of an imminent threat that it posed to the U.S. homeland, but these young men and women, we got to support them, Scott.
Do you get the feeling that there are elements of the Democratic Party and elements of our media that are rooting for American failure, all because they would like to see something politically bad happen to Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, it's not a feeling. That is absolutely a fact. It starts with their Trump derangement syndrome, but it's bigger than that. I mean, this is a cancer that has been growing in this country for several years. Some would argue for probably the same amount of time as the Ayatollah has been waging war against us. We have a war internally that seeks to be anti-American, seeks to change everything that our founders held good and great, and to undo what the greatest generation did during World War II. This has been ongoing, and by the way, it's not the majority of the country, but they sound like they're the majority because of the left-wing anti-American media that promotes them.
And they want to give people the feeling that they are the majority. They want to try to browbeat people and I think scare people into believing, well, you need to see it this way. I think the majority of Americans are patriotic. They understand the threat posed by Iran. And they certainly understand that when we're at war, we have kids, troops, heroes in theater. We have to support those people. And the idea that you would go out and give off even the vibe that you hope for American failure, to me, well, look, at the State of the Union, the president asked the Democrats to stand up and affirm that their highest duty is to protect the American people, and not a single one of them could bring themselves to do it. That emotion seems to be extending to the war effort. Let's talk a little bit about the midterm elections. It's a closely divided House, narrow Republican majority. You're the whip, which means you got to keep the conference together, which I know is difficult sometimes. But as you look ahead to the November elections, what are the issues that stand out to you that Republicans need to run on in order to retain this majority and frankly, outkick our historical coverage? Midterms often go against the party in power.
Oh, that's true, but we've never had a map like this. I think people forget that in 2018, Trump's first midterm, where he was not quite as interested in that as he is in this one, which we can talk about because that's another factor that's going to play. In that midterm, Scott, we were defending over 20 of our members who were in seats that Hillary Clinton had won in the 2016 election. And in spite of that, I would argue this is the other problem, is we ran on the wrong message back then. It was one message. We're 435 pieces of ground. You've heard the speaker talk about this is likely going to come down to 31 seats in the House to determine this. Those seats, each one has a unique geography with its own demographic. We do not drive the national message out of the House. We are impacted by it. We can be from the main speaker, which is Donald J. Trump, right, or things that happen. But our candidates, our incumbents, are the product that we are offering. They need to look and sound like the districts they're running in. This is what we started back in the 2020 cycle. And they need to market that district based on the issue that's most important. You might remember back in 2020 when they said we were going to lose 24 seats in that election. We actually beat 12 Democrats that night and almost took back the majority for the first time in almost 52 years, I think it was, during a presidential cycle. It was, you ran on energy in Oklahoma City. You ran on socialism as a bad thing in in Miami, South Miami. We were successful because we were selling exactly what is most important. This cycle, it's going to be what it is every time. There will be nuances, but sometime after Labor Day this year, the vast majority of the public that decides these elections, that they don't wear a partisan Republican or partisan Democrat jersey year-round like we do, right? They'll wake up and they'll say, oh, we got an election. And you know what they'll do? It will be an emotional experience where they'll ask themselves, do I feel better today than I did under the last administration? And do I see a bright future for myself and my kids economically, prosperous? If the answer to those questions is yes, we're going to stay in the majority. And I believe it's going to be yes because of the big, beautiful bill.
The president, of course, is going to be a big part of the Republican messaging operation. We were chatting before we went on the air. It seems like your governor in Minnesota, Tim Walz, has announced he's going to travel the country on behalf of Democrats. All I can say is this is a positive development. Tom Emmer from Minnesota, thanks for coming by the show. I want to talk to you about Relief Factor. You know, I've been talking about Relief Factor on the show since I started it last summer. I'm getting all these letters from people who have found relief after trying the 3-week quick start. But here is something new. Relief Factor's been in the lab, and they have come up with a way to make their already trusted formula even better. They have added premium black pepper extract because it helps your body absorb these nutrients and the key ingredients more efficiently. If you like Relief Factor, it's now even better. If you haven't tried Relief Factor, it's going to be amazing for you because it's going to help your body absorb it and work more quickly. My advice, look, we've been using it. My dad loves it. He's no spring chicken, but he's hopping around like one. My advice is do the 3-week quick start. It's $19.95. You have nothing to lose here if you're in pain. Go to relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF and ask yourself how would it feel to be out of pain. When we come back, Congresswoman Lisa McClain from Michigan is stopping by. It's Common Sense for the American people. I'm Scott Jennings. You're listening to this show on Salem. Stay with us.
Fighting for free speech and Western civilization. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
And we're doing it on location today, live from Trump Doral in Miami, Florida, where the House Republican Conference is meeting to talk about policy and political priorities for the rest of the year. And the chair of the House Republican Conference is here, Lisa McClain. She represents Michigan's 9th Congressional District. Chair McClain, first of all, thank you for the invitation to be here. It was an honor to come down, and thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for being here, and we really appreciate your comments.
Well, I appreciate the chance to talk to everybody. We've had some great conversations with a lot of your members today. You're sort of the person that organizes all of these people and tries to get them together on various things. You got a bunch of them down here in Florida. So first question for me is, what's the vibe among Republicans right now? You're from the president last night. You've been meeting today. What's the general vibe here in the energy levels with the Republicans?
Listen, I think the vibe is positive. I think the energy level is, I mean, you saw it. Members are engaged. It's real, honest policy discussion on how do we win the midterms, what's the strategy, and what are the 2 or 3 or 4 policy wins that we're really going to focus on between now and the midterms.
And in your opinion, what will those policy wins be?
Well, I still think we need to get down to the meat of it, right? But if I had to guess right now, it's going to be all around, right, the SAVE Act, if you listen to the president's speech, right? It's going to be how do we lower costs, right? Keep costs low. How do we have more Americans keep more of their money in their pockets, right? And a little bit less permitting and stuff and regulation. And we might accomplish that in Reconciliation 2.0. We might accomplish that with targeted shot bills that we continue to pass through the House. But it will all be, I think, the majority around economic issues.
You live in Michigan. And this is one of the most important states in the midterm. We've got a Senate race going on there, got a governor's race going on there, at least 2 competitive House districts in the 7th and the 10th. Tell us about Michigan. Is this like ground zero for American politics in 2026?
Well, I'm a little biased, so of course I think so. But Michigan, look at Trump won Michigan. Right? And we need to keep Michigan red. And I think what we have to do is just compare and contrast the normal versus crazy on what we have going on in Michigan, right? Is if you want crime and you want more sanctuary cities, vote for a Democrat. You know, we have, unfortunately, Rashida Tlaib in Michigan. All you have to do is compare and contrast her policies with the Republican policies, right? I think we're poised very well in Michigan. If you take a look at the Senate, we've cleared the race for Mike Rogers.
Right.
And the Democrats are fighting amongst each other, and how they're fighting and who they're fighting with matters. They're fighting to the left of the left of the left. I mean, radical, progressive, socialistic policies, right? So they're running to see who can be the most wackadoodle, as I call it, and we're normal.
Right. I think you're going to see that in all your races.
I do.
Not just in Michigan, but across the board. I think Democrats may run into an issue in some of their primaries this year where they wind up nominating people who, upon further review, are going to seem totally crazy to most average voters. Look what happened in the Texas Senate primary. They nominated this guy, Tallarico, and, we have clip after clip coming out of this guy. There's 6 genders. God sent a message to Mary asking if she wanted to have an abortion, and they wrap all this in this strange ideology, which just sort of conveniently lines up with all their political priorities. I don't think it's going to wear well with just average, everyday working Americans. I think when the president said, these people are crazy at the State of the Union, he was kind of giving you all some advice about how to run these races.
Yeah, and he was spot on, because if you take a look at their policies, it's clear. And there is a clear contrast between normal and crazy. And we've been in the field. We've done polling. It's economic issues. It's the bulk of people don't want biological men playing in women's sports. I mean, that's an easy one. But to your point, all these radical liberal lunatics, so to speak, they're going to press for that. Those aren't winning issues.
Yeah, it's interesting. They can't really back away from it now, A, because I think it's what they believe, and B, their base is so radical. You deviate from any of these sort of lunatic fringe positions, and the base really turns on you in the Democratic Party. I think I think Tallarico is going to have a heck of a time finding a way out of some of these crazy things that he said over the years. Lisa, thank you for coming by. I have a hard stop here at our bottom of the hour break, but I did want to thank you again for having me down to this important conference. We look forward to seeing what the Republicans have to say on the back end. I know you heard a great speech from the president last night. When we come back after this break, we're going to talk to Erin Houchin of Indiana. She's coming by, and I'd like to ask her actually about keeping kids safe online. This is one of the big passions of Erin Houchin. They have this App Store Accountability Act. There's a lot of things going on out there that parents need to know. We'll cover that when we come back. It's Scott Jennings here on Salem. Common sense for the American people. Stay with us.
If the leftists haven't had enough yet, there's more. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
It is Common Sense for the American people on Tuesday, March the 10th. Scott Jennings broadcasting a special edition of this show today, live on location from Trump Doral in Miami, Florida. And we're tracking the breaking news as we interview members of the House Republican Conference who are gathered here to talk about their policy and political priorities for the rest of the year. One bit of news, the White House Press Secretary, Caroline Leavitt, is at the podium briefing the media. She had some comments about the flow of oil over in the Middle East. Let's listen to Leavitt in Cut 13.
If they do anything to stop the flow of oil or goods within the Strait of Hormuz, they will be hit by the world's most powerful military 20 times harder than they have been hit thus far.
Pretty strong threat from Leavitt following the threats from the president himself. Joining us now and returning to the Scott Jennings Show from the great state of Indiana, my personal neighbor just to the immediate north. And you got a lot of bills moving through right now, which I want to get to. This is Erin Houchin. Welcome back to the show, Erin, and good to see you, and thank you for all your legislative work. I want to get to the energy and commerce stuff in a minute. I also want to talk a little bit about Iran, and I want to hear from the president. Let's hear from him. He spoke last night here to the Republicans. Cut number 6, Donald Trump.
We're ahead of our initial timeline by a lot. I would say that we probably would not have thought after a month we'd be here. In addition to the fact that we've taken out the leadership twice and maybe 3 times. And we, as you know, we want to be involved. We don't want another president that maybe wouldn't be willing to do what I'm willing to do for the good of the world, for the good of our nation, to be stuck with the situation in 5 years or 10 years from now. So we think they should put a president in, or the head of the country in, that's going to be able to do something peacefully for a change. They've been doing this for 47 years, killing people for 47 years.
That was the president last night, Erin. You heard him, and obviously now you're tracking the news in Iran as closely as anyone because you're in the House. What do you see so far? What are your people back in Indiana telling you about the war?
Thanks for having me, Scott. Back in Indiana, people support the president. They support President Trump. The president is right. This has been 47 years of terror out of Iran and the regime. And I'm happy that we have a president that is going to protect our homeland security. Thankfully, he has put unleashing American energy on top of his agenda as well to make America energy independent. America was energy independent for the first time in 40 years under the first administration of President Trump.
Right.
We lost that ground under President Biden, and we're just regaining it to make be responsible for our own energy independence and our own oil production. So we don't have to be reliant on countries that are not our allies. This is a long time coming. I fully support the president and believe that this was an action that he took in the interest of our national security.
I tend to agree with you. I think after 47 years of these butchers waging war against us and all of Western civilization, they had it coming, and it was an imminent threat, despite what I think the media and the Democrats are saying. I do want to get your reaction to something that's literally just coming in to the Scott Jennings Show. This, according to CBS News, and it relates to what Caroline Leavitt just said at the podium. U.S. intelligence assets have begun to see indications that Iran is taking steps to deploy mines in the Strait of Hormuz shipping lane. Iran is using smaller crafts that can carry 2 to 3 mines each. Iran's mine stockpile isn't publicly known, but estimates over the years have ranged from roughly 2,000 to 6,000 naval mines of Iranian, Chinese, and Russian-made variants. This is a news report breaking out of CBS. Leavitt warned them. The president has warned them. Would you support this idea of hitting them 20 times harder if they put landmines in the Strait of Hormuz and try to muck up the logistics around the oil coming out of the Middle East?
Well, certainly we cannot let Iran operate in such a manner. This is clear evidence that President Trump's actions there have been working, that they are sort of back against the wall. And as President Trump said, this action that he's taken and that our brave men and women in the military and the Department of War have taken has been very effective. And Iran is desperate, which is why I think you see this action today. That's really the only move maybe that they have left. I hope that they don't do that. I hope that they would abandon that plan, because I do believe that the president would be right to strike harder. We just cannot let the world exist with such a threat of Iran. It has been, again, 47 years, but they were developing nuclear weapons. They were given billions of dollars under the Obama and Biden administrations to develop their nuclear program. And the Middle East is far safer if we lead through strength and toward peace through strength, and that's what President Trump is showing. I certainly hope that we don't see those actions in the Strait, but support the president and his actions to stand firm, not just for the United States of America, but for our partners in the region.
Erin Houchin is the voice you're hearing. She's Congresswoman from Indiana's 9th Congressional District. Now, you serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee, one of the most important committees, and you and I have talked many times about one of your passions, one of the reasons you're in public service, and that is the protection of children. And specifically, the committee has passed some legislation recently about protecting children online. The Kids Internet and Digital Safety Act, sweeping legislative package has come out of committee that is designed to protect kids online. And in there, you had a couple of bills that got put inside of that. Talk to me and our listeners about your work, the threats that kids face, and what this legislation is going to do to try to protect them.
Yes, thanks for drawing attention to that. Way back in 1996, Congress passed the Kids Online Privacy Protection Act, which established age 13 as essentially, having free access to the internet. We thought at that time kids might need it to have access to do their homework. And the internet today and the online dangers today are far greater than what we could have ever imagined, not just from social media, which we've got legislation to keep kids under the age of 16 with parental consent. We don't want kids at age 13 having access to social media platforms and other things without parental involvement, and that's the current status quo with age 13. Now we have AI chatbots that are an additional danger. So this was a very comprehensive bill led by our chairman, Congressman Brett Guthrie, and it included the AWARE Act, which is letting parents and teachers and families and children know that there are dangers to AI chatbots and what to look out for, and then SafeBots, which is some guidelines for these chatbots so that they have to remind the user that they're not a human, that they are not a therapist, a doctor, a counselor, a friend, and to direct them to resources if some conversations occur that may indicate self-harm. We've seen, children as, even a 14, 15-year-old boys who have been encouraged by chatbots to do self-harm. We want to make sure that those things aren't happening, and the parents should be aware of all the dangers that are out there. They can be great tools, but we want them to be safe, and that's why we're working on it.
Obviously, some legislating to be done here. Do you expect these bills to pass this year, and do you expect them to have bipartisan support?
There is bipartisan support for the bills that we've been working on. I have been fortunate to be able to work with Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts, who agrees with our stance on kids' online safety, that we should not allow for kids under the age of 16 to have access to social media without parental consent. That he's working on the Parents Over Platforms Act. John James is working on the App Store Accountability Act. Both of them are aimed at trying to keep kids under the age of 16 out of, complete app store freedom without parental knowledge or consent. We, Jake and I, co-chair the Kids Online Safety Caucus, which is a bipartisan effort aimed at protecting kids online.
Some countries, Australia, Malaysia, have banned outright social media for kids under the age of 16. We have sort of tricky free speech and constitutional issues to discuss around that in the United States. Do you hear from parents often that say, I wish you guys would just turn this off until they turn 16 or until they turn 18 years old?
Certainly we hear from parents, because we've had parents who've unfortunately lost children due to some of these online harms, bullying, even from video games that they play, if there's a chat feature. Also, their algorithms might push self-harm type of videos, the choking challenge and other things that went around, that have go viral on the internet and cause kids to engage in self-harmful behaviors. But we've been working with Jonathan Haidt, who wrote The Anxious Generation,
right,
on this 16-year-old standard. I wish I had had that book when I was raising teenagers. Now my oldest is almost 17. So
is mine.
We're getting, or my youngest is almost 17.
Okay.
But my oldest is 22. I've got a 20-year-old, and then of course my youngest is almost 17. But I've told my story many times, Scott, and that is that when our daughter was 13, she got access to Instagram. She hacked around our parental controls, and when we realized this and contacted the platform to say please delete her account, we were told she's legally entitled to have it. She's 13, she can have the account, and you can go pound sand. And that means that social media companies are in our homes, in our children's bedrooms, and the door is locked and we cannot get in. We're literally not in the driver's seat, we're locked out of the car. And that's a dangerous situation that we need to give help and support to parents. Because if you get into a circumstance where you don't want your kid to have it right now, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it.
Got about 30 seconds here with Erin Houchin, Congresswoman from Indiana. The president brought this up in the State of the Union. You have moved on it. You've introduced this Delilah's Law bill to remove illegal alien truck drivers from U.S. roads. This is just coming out. are we going to see passage this year?
I certainly hope so. I will say that under the current circumstances, it's easier for an illegal alien to get a commercial driver's license and drive across the country without being trained than it is for our military veterans who've been driving heavy equipment to get a CDL when they leave the military for civilian life. So this is dangerous. It's a must pass. We have to close these loopholes to make our highways safer.
Erin Houchin, Congresswoman from Indiana's 9th District, key member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, and obviously a passionate advocate for keeping Americans and American citizens safe from all sorts of harm out there. Before we take a break, I need to give you a quick word from our friends at the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. They are obviously tracking Operation Epic Fury, and in the Holy Land, these air raid sirens fill the air nightly. They get about 15 seconds to get down to the bomb shelter, and it's at times like these that the fellowship, the IFCJ, is on the ground preparing large-scale distributions of life-saving food, first aid, and emergency essentials for security personnel. They also distribute these things to hospitals. They're all aimed at trying to protect Israel's most vulnerable, the sick, the elderly, children, and families. They all depend on the fellowship. If you'd like to stand with Israel in prayer today and support this mission, go to supportifcj.org, supportifcj.org. We're going to take a break. When we come back, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, our final guest on the Scott Jennings Show. You don't want to miss it. Stay with us.
The voice of reason, common sense for the American people. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
Common Sense being broadcast coast to coast and worldwide here on Salem, and we're on location at Trump Doral. The House Republicans are meeting. They invited me down, and we've had 7 of our 8 guests. And our final guest is here. Our final speaker is the Speaker. Mike Johnson from Louisiana is here. Mr. Speaker, thanks for the invite to be with you all. I know you're having a lot of conversations with the members. It's a tight majority. Every conservative out there wants to know how you intend to frame the debate in the coming elections. What are we going to hear from you and the Republican Party?
It's very clear this is a contrast election. By the way, thank you for speaking to the House Republicans. You got them all fired up. You guys should have heard, the audience, you should have heard all the glowing reviews that Scott got after speaking to us. It was Reagan-esque. It was Churchillian. It was the happy warrior. I love it that, it's about common sense. And that's your brand, and that's our brand, and that's what we're going to run on, Scott, because it's a contrast election. You talk about one party doing what we said, keeping our promises, returning America to common sense. That's why America's back. And the question is, do we want to return to the old days where they were taking us off a woke leftist DEI insurgent left cliff? Marxism for everyone, socialism for everyone, transgender surgeries for minors and men and women's sports and open borders and, higher taxes and higher regulation. We don't need to go back to that. We can't afford to do that. And that's what our message is in the election. It's a contrast and a choice.
It seems to me that, they've adopted this as a political strategy. Democrats have really signaled to the American people their principal mission. All their energy is spent on everybody but American citizens, everybody but the hardworking average American who just gets up and goes to work every day, follows the rules, pays their taxes. Democrats aren't interested in those people, but all of this legislation you've passed, what you're working on now, it's all aimed squarely at that average, everyday, forgotten American. And I think if we stay on that, Mr. Speaker, it's going to be a sweet spot for the fall.
And it's the right thing to do. And the big, beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, we geared it for middle and lower class earners. No tax on tips and overtime and tax relief for seniors and people that it really means a lot to. And so household incomes are going up. Wages will continue to go up. Kevin Hassett was on the panel right after you left, and he's talking about 4% growth rate in the coming quarters, right as we go into the election. People will feel the effects of this, Scott, and it's meaningful to real people. That's what we're about. The Democrats, on the other hand, have their priorities out of whack. The State of the Union was a great display of that. Hey, stand up if you think the first job of the federal government is to protect American citizens instead of illegal aliens. They all sat on their hands. Today, right now as we speak, they're demonstrating this yet again. They have shut down the Department of Homeland Security because they don't want immigration enforcement to take place. I mean, it's really dangerous stuff.
You're getting the highest level intelligence briefings on the war and everything going on overseas, but also the terrorism threats, the possible sleeper cells that we've seen now popping up here in the United States. DHS is closed, as you just mentioned. Are you concerned that this closure is putting Americans at risk whether it's from terrorism, whether it's from what goes on at our airports. Are people at risk right now because of Democratic intransigence on this issue?
It is an objective fact, undeniable, that Americans are at higher risk right now because Democrats are playing political games. And this is, you look at yesterday, these two guys throwing pipe bombs in the middle of New York City at a crowd. You could have had dozens of people die there. You had a terrorist event on Sunday. Another part of the country, DHS has the alarm bells going. Hey, look out, there are sleeper cells almost certainly surrounding the country and in the country because the border was wide open for 4 years. So we have to take this very seriously, and they are not only shutting down the very agencies required to keep us safe, but also to respond to national disasters like FEMA and, the Coast Guard. I mean, very essential services. They're going without pay. They're having personnel shortages, and that's why if you missed a wedding or a funeral or your flight to spring break, you can blame the Democrats for that because that's what's happening at the airports as well.
You're in constant contact with the Commander-in-Chief. You're getting briefings from the Secretary of War and the Secretary of State. Are you satisfied with the American war effort, and do you have any expectations of how long you think it'll take for us to meet our objectives here?
The president was here last night. I spent a couple hours with him yesterday in small group, out on the stage, and then privately, and he's saying the same thing consistently. We're almost done here. It was a limited scope operation with a very specific mission set. We believe that mission is almost accomplished, and it's going to be very short term. We're on, I think, day 10. I don't think it goes much longer, and that's not just my conjecture. That's what the Commander-in-Chief is saying to us, even behind the curtain.
That's Mike Johnson. He is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. He is a congressman from Louisiana. Mr. Speaker, you're presiding over the narrowest majority, but yet you continue to deliver results for the conservatives who elected this majority and for the American people. Thanks for coming on the Scott Jennings Show. We are live today and wrapping up now from Trump Doral. We're in Miami. Speaker Johnson was the 8th member of the U.S. House that we had on the show today. Thanks for the invitation to be here to the House Republicans. Thanks to all of you all for listening. We'll have more Common Sense tomorrow on Salem.
Common sense for the American people. This is the Scott Jennings Show.